Great. I'm actually not supposed to record yet, am I? Okay, hang on. Great. All right. Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the OpenJS Foundation's Cross-Project Council meeting. Today's March 18th in 2025, and we'll get things started. Let's see. Where are my notes here? Do we have any announcements from anyone? Guessing perhaps not, since most of the announcement folks are over in that building over there. Trying to think if there's anything that I can think of to announce. The JSConf tickets, I think, are the early bird tickets were available. I don't know if they still are. Check the website. And yeah, things are progressing there. We'll have more announcements soon on that. Okay. Next on the agenda is any board meeting updates. I don't know if there's anything to share yet. We had a bit of a working session yesterday, and maybe I will save a little bit of private time to share a little bit of that. I'll wait for Robin to expand. So I don't think there's anything from the board side. I'm going to skip over all the legal info, staff update, website update stuff, since Ben and Robin would probably answer most of those. And I'm unaware of any movement on those. If anybody has any updates or anything related to those, please chime in. Otherwise, we will just jump into the agenda, which is actually not very long, so that's great. The first item is to a proposal to add services.md or a similar document to the OpenJS to OpenJS projects. Ben opened this. I don't see any comments. This is open 2 weeks ago. Does anybody have any context on this particular issue? I don't either, so I'm kind of reviewing it really quickly. Projects would maintain a services.md file, would contain third-party SaaS products that the project relies on. This would be significant services, not everything. Hosting and infrastructure, development, CI, CD, monitoring and security, communication and support. Does anybody have any thoughts on this?
I have two.
Okay.
One would be there are some services that are for projects, but like managed in one way or another by the foundation. So I guess the question is, would this, and Ben's not here, I realize that, but would this need to be somewhere that foundation folks and project folks could update? My only other comment is regarding the visibility of this. In terms of operational security, having a very public list of your infrastructure services is not necessarily great. I don't know that this what Ben has here is suggesting that it's public or not. But yeah, just my thought is that something like this is probably best to have in a private repository.
Yeah, I agree. I think that all makes sense. Yeah, apparently this list exists. I was reading the issue, but it's in a Google Doc and is, under Foundation purview. So I think the idea makes sense. It would probably be a good thing. Um, although I really do wonder how quickly it would be outdated and such, you know. It seems to be, if I'm not mistaken, for the benefit of the foundation IT staff. And so I don't know how motivated maintainers would be to keep that on their radar and keep it up to date.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd probably help to have Ben here to provide that additional context, right?
Yeah,
Um, and another thing that would help is like, you know, what projects specifically would this impact? Like what projects show up on that spreadsheet? And so because it'd be good to get um, feedback from specific project maintainers to get their thoughts on this. Like who is affected by this the most? I know there's an open issue, I think, on the Express side. I don't know how much it overlaps with what this is talking about, but there's an open issue on the Express side to have this sort of a thing, like to note down all the different services that are used,
yeah,
and uh, who has access and stuff. And I have the same concerns there about how public that is.
yeah,
But yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. All right, well, we can talk more about it with Ben next go round and see what makes sense. Go from there. Cool. And hello, Darcy. I didn't see you join there. Welcome.
Howdy. Been
Howdy.
well.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Moving on to the next item. And I should maybe make a note here. Discussed, but without Ben here. Um, the next item is a link to the same page for the COC team info. This is a PR that Toby opened up a month ago. Pretty basic, adding a link to the code of conduct page. And so this has been open for a month and is pretty small, but also significant. So I'm gonna merge this unless anyone has any reasons not to. Cool. Squash and merge.
I didn't actually test the link, but I presume that it is
Yeah,
correct and that it does what it says on the.
yeah, yeah. And I don't think we have the link checker anymore, so we'll see. All right, I merged that. So if somebody wants to go and check the link, that'd be great. The next on the list here is the Code of Conduct Plan of Action. Michaela really helpfully kind of distilled the list down to what was perhaps remaining. And this needs to be gone through further. Would be nice to do some evangelizing around CPC policy updates. Okay, once this is wrapped, that makes sense. Thank you, Michaela, for pulling this together. This is something that's been on my radar for a long time, but I just keep not getting it done, and I feel really bad about it. But I don't know if we want to try to set aside the working session next week for this, and just try to get this completed, since this it's not clear in here because we have this new issue, but the original issue is from the middle of 2023, which makes sense. We had a lot of work to do. There was lots of aspects of the code of conduct, the team, and the policies to work through. So maybe we'll look at this at the next working session if folks are interested, or is, I guess maybe I can ask now, is there anything else that we would want to set aside for next week's working session that would supersede this? If not, then I will earmark this for that. And we won't spend much time on it today, but I'll put a note here. We'll work on next Session. This one. Cool. All right, great. Next on the agenda is the native script TSC charter. Toby's last comment is from November. Yeah, I don't know if there's really anything for us to do on this. Does anybody have any more context on this native script charter issue?
I do not. Maybe just pinging Jamie, maybe in the issue, to see if this is considered resolved or if there's anything further needed.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'll leave this open and come back to that. Excellent. I think the next one is also related. Adding affiliation clause to the native script charter. I imagine this is similar, although there are at least comments into November. But nothing recently. So I think this is another one that we need to check in with the native script folks and see where things are at. Yeah. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Cruising right along. The last issue here on the agenda is the continuity policy and package registries. We talked about this last week in the working session. Looking here, Rudd.
I can give an update on this
Great.
because we went over this yesterday in the security meeting. So Rudd created, I don't know, he did some research and then, on NPM internals and all that sort of thing. And he has drafted up a policy. Again, that's based on the GitHub one that we've already created. And so we talked about that, gave feedback on that yesterday. I think we're still wanting to talk about that again. Some folks whose feedback we would like were not in attendance yesterday. So hopefully we'll talk about that again on Monday. Interested parties, please do join us at that meeting. That's the OpenJS Security Collab Space meeting, which is at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. And we should be out of the spooky DST week for our European friends. And I think I didn't recall yesterday, but I think I recalled in my dreams in the night that we originally had a couple of options for the continuity policy, and but what Rudd's draft only had the one option aside from the opt out. So as a reminder, like if you have enough governance and maintainers, there's no need to have an OpenJS person, Ramen or whoever to have access because you've got more than enough coverage. But if you don't opt out, Rudd only has one option in there, which was to add, you know, Robin as an owner on your organization. And I couldn't remember what the other option was, and I couldn't find the notes from the working session. But I believe it was, and I forget the details, but at a high level, I believe it was that you would add the person as an owner on directly on the package. And I think that's because not everybody necessarily has their package associated with an organization. And so in that case, there's no organization to add someone to. And, we don't want to have to ask projects to like change how they've organized their permission schemes in NPM just for this purpose. So I think that was the missing option. But I couldn't recall that yesterday with Rod, so I don't remember. He had some reasons for not including it, but we might not have had the same understanding. So I expect we'll talk about that on Monday.
Great, yeah, and we should probably socialize that this conversation is happening in the security working group, maybe in Slack or something, so folks are aware and if they're interested can come and comment as well. That'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. So hopefully, in a perfect world, we would nail it down on Monday and then be able to share it with CPC folks on, well, I guess it's the working session next week, but yeah, socialize it for broader feedback after that.
Yep. Yep. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Excellent. Any other comments from folks on that one?
Sorry, I guess I'm just following up on this. Like what's the policy or what's the like document you're putting together, Chris?
Yeah, so the background is if you're not familiar with the we did this for GitHub a while ago. I'll share the link right now in the chat. So the GitHub continuity policy was created so that well, let me take a step back. The impetus originally was we had a foundation project that basically was abandoned for whatever reason. The project wound down or whatever it was. But then we had trouble getting a hold of the previous, the maintainers in order to do some administrative things, whatever it was. And so it was just kind of an ongoing struggle and time sink on part of, I think, mostly Ben. And so in the wake of this, we were like, okay, we need to have something in place to prevent this in the future. And so you have these options of, and this really only applies to like really small projects that don't have a lot of maintainers, right? In which case you would grant, Robin administrative access to your GitHub project or your GitHub organization. Or if your project has enough governance and maintainers, you can opt out. So it wouldn't make sense to do this for like Node, for example. And anyway, after we did this, I don't know, a little bit later, I was thinking, oh wait, we need this for NPM as well, or package managers registries in general. But I think all of the OpenJS Foundation ones today use NPM. And so, yeah, it's just the equivalent of the GitHub continuity policy in an NPM style. And that's just what we're trying to nail down. So in the future, I regularly use NVM as an example because there's just Jordan, right? If something, heaven forbid, Jordan's not able to do something, then somebody would be able to have a break glass, and that's somebody being Robin/Ben.
Appreciate the clarification. So the right form to join is Security Collab on Monday.
Yes.
Well, I just know some nuances there that might be helpful for you folks. Particular gotchas that you might face, especially if you're considering like transferring packages to like organizations. That can't be undone in a future state based on the not easily, at least,
Right.
without a significant help from support based on, unfortunately, the legacy NPM infrastructure. But yeah.
Yeah, no, totally get it. And we've definitely been looking into those quirks and documenting them. But
And the alternative is a shared user account, which that's not great either. But
yes, we specifically talked about that yesterday as well. Yeah, no, it'd be great to have extra eyes on that. I think in the GitHub link, there's probably a link somewhere to Rudd's analysis. I'm 99.9% sure. So that information should be in there. But yeah, anything that's missing, we should add. And to your point, one of the most important things is that we don't ask projects to have to reorganize how they're doing things in NPM. We would like this to be as non-invasive as possible. So
yeah, because that's a one way. As far as I remember, and the last time I checked in on the art that infrastructure, that's a one way street. So it can't be undone once it's in an organization. It becomes extremely hard. You can't transfer the org. So
Yeah, and my hope is that we wouldn't need anyone to do that to accomplish the. I think you could just add somebody as an owner directly on the package if you don't have it set up with organizations, and that should be sufficient.
thanks.
Cool. Yeah, it'd be great if you could join next week, Darcy. Your knowledge there would be helpful.
Ulysses, feel
And
free to
Joe-
chime in if I've left something out or anything you can recall.
Joe, if you need to run, you can just go and then I'll pick it up from here.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Toby. We're actually, this is the last item.
Okay, good.
And since I'm host and I'm recording, I was like, oh, I'm not actually sure I can bail, but whatever. So let's just we can see if you know, if folks want to talk more about the stuff or anything. I mean, thank you though, Toby. Oh, yeah. So great. If we're done with that issue, that is the last issue on the agenda. Let me open it up again just to be sure here. We were talking about looking at the code of conduct action plan for the working session next week. Let me even put that in here so we have it captured, because next week I'll be like, oh yeah, what do we decide to do? So I'll copy that down here. Is there anything else that folks want to work on or talk about while we have the time here?
It might be good. Sorry, I just saw Darcy's comment in the chat, but it might be good to, not during the recording, just briefly review the travel fund request, because there were a couple emails on that, and I guess it's Ben's not here, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much we could get answers to whether those approvals were communicated or whether they were actually approved or not.
I handled those last week. For those who don't know me, I'm Kate. I'm
Hey,
a new program manager at Linux working with Ben.
okay, sorry, just real quick. Sorry, it's not my intention to cut you off, but we're still recording, and normally if we're talking about that, we should not be, and we should make sure that there's during a private session.
Okay.
Yeah, good call
So-
there, Chris. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
so Joe, why don't you close the public session and go do the things that you have to do, and I'll help Chris on and folks on this one.
Great. Yeah, so we'll call it a wrap on the recording. Thanks everybody for joining and for watching in the future. See you next time.